This is show number 369. If you're keeping score at home, and you should, if you watched the show previously, you know Jonathan Lockwood comes on here on a regular basis. He's a military historian, former U.S. Army colonel, and if I gotta ask, we're gonna put him on the screen here. He's calling in from Western Virginia like he used to. Do I got this right, Jonathan? They use one of your books as a textbook at West Point or something like that?
Oh, well, and not quite. This was back in the past when my first book came out. My first book was The Soviet View of U.S. Strategic Doctrine, Implications for Decision Making. And the book itself became adopted by the U.S. Army's Command and General Staff College as a recommended reading in the Strategic Studies subcourse. This was while I was taking CGSC by correspondence before coming up for major. And I said, okay. So I said,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I think I'm the only Army officer that has ever done that.
Now, in the future, just to abbreviate that, I'm going to say they use your book as a textbook.
Yeah. And the National Intelligence University used my subsequent book as a required reading in their courses. So that's pretty good. That is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, man. And it really is. Seriously.
So right now, when they told me over in Germany they were using my book as a recommended reading, I said, well, I guess I better call those folks up and see if I can get constructive credit for the strategic studies subcourse. And so I called them up, and they said, I told them I'd like to get constructive credit for your strategic studies subcourse. And the guy asked, why is that? I said, well, I have a PhD in international affairs, number one. And number two, you're using my book. Using my book.
What did he say? They didn't say no, did they?
No, he said, well, just send us documentation, what your name of your book is and your authors. And I sent it in to them, and they gave me constructive credit. He said, "Don't bother." So I could skip that one. That enabled me to finish Command and General Staff College by correspondence just before my promotion board to major came up, and I had it documented. I sent it to them, and then I got promoted to major on time. And I found out later that of all the factors that go into promotion boards, that people gave only one factor had a 100% promotion rate. Not even command could make that. In this case, it was those captains who had managed to complete Command and General Staff College before coming up for major, and I was one of the few. So
pretty
great,
cool.
That paid off. I had a direct correlation that the effort was worth it.
Yeah. That's very, very cool. You're an impressive man. That's the reason I love having you on. Also, you like to talk, so that's good.
Yes, I do.
It's a talk show, so that
I hate to go on a talk show and be a shrinking violet.
No. You'd be surprised. I have to say, so this is our 369th show. I've been really good about not having duds on as guests. I mean,
other talk show hosts like David Letterman have had duds.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I think in the entertainment business, you get more of them. People come on here mostly for information. So it's like, but even still, some people are highly learned but don't talk well. So even some authors, I don't have to tell you that. Some people are really good at writing but not good at talking. So
anyway, one of my friends in graduate school, I wrote a letter to him, and he wrote back and said, getting a letter he says, it's you talk exactly the way you write exactly the way you speak. It's like opening the envelope and having you spill out.
I think that's a testament to your authenticity too, because that's what I think happens to people that are authentic. They write just the same way they talk.
Yeah, it's nice to know.
So, of course, we have you on here to talk about military matters, and that's the reason you're on today. So, have you been? I assume you know what's been going on in Iraq the last week or so, right? Or Iran, excuse me.
Yeah. It's kind of get that one letter mixed up.
Oh yeah, and I do it all the time, constantly.
With Iran, well, now you've got two nations engaged in a contest of political wills. I mean, Clausewitz said war is an extension of politics, and in war the result is never final. Well, you could say the same thing about politics too. In politics, the result is never final. In this case, you've got Iran, a theocracy essentially, with an existential view of the world. And they refer to the United States as the great Satan and to Israel as the little Satan. And they are engaged in conflict, and an existential conflict in their view, to which they are not willing to let go of, no matter how big the military imbalance is. And for the United States, you have President Trump, who does not view the world existentially. He views it in terms of, well, he's a businessman, and he thinks in terms of, much like if you watch the movie Kelly's Heroes back in the 1970s with Don Rickles, who played a character named Crap Game. And they came up in this town where they knew there was a large store of gold in a bank. And Rickles says to Kelly, to Clint Eastwood, who's playing Lieutenant Kelly, he says, maybe he wants to make a deal. And he says, deal? He said, a deal. It's that kind of mentality for someone like President Trump. To him, everyone wants to make a deal ultimately about something. They've used it in a very transactional view.
But but Jonathan, isn't that actually kind of the problem here? Is everyone in the past, and Trump to a certain extent too, although not as much, has tried to approach this more or less rationally. Like you said, everybody wants to make a deal. And these people do not want to make a deal. They want to take over the world, and they don't care if they're dying trying. I mean, even their Constitution says this. They have it actually in writing, So everyone in the past, everyone has tried to placate these people or tried to make a deal, and everyone has failed.
There is a historical precedent for this. You remember the Roman Empire, Rome versus Carthage in the Punic Wars.
Yeah.
And the Roman Senator Cicero would say, and every one of his speeches with the Latin phrase, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. And it may cease to exist. And when Rome finally won, they did in fact make Carthage cease to exist. They plowed over their fields, sowed the fields with salt so they couldn't raise any agricultural base, and so you could not have a nation thriving there. And now President Trump, has reimposed the blockade in the Hormuz Straits and on Iranian ships. And now he may come to the conclusion that he may have to impose, in fact, a Carthaginian peace on Iran and effectively destroy it as a viable nation state. Because after all, Iran has been saying for 47 years practically, death to America. They've been saying that for 47 years, and they've been absolutely ruthless. And so eventually he's going to say, well, if we're rational about this, if you want us to cease to exist, we're not going to cease to exist at your pleasure. You're going to be the ones who have to cease to exist if it comes down to that choice. So right now the United States has the overwhelming military balance. There are other skeptics who try to contend that Trump has no plan. No, what he is confronting is a mindset that is totally alien to his own.
Yeah.
And so it's totally alien.
Basically, don't you think it's basically alien into any sort of Western thinking?
Correct. Well, we encountered pretty much the same problem in World War II versus Japan, Imperial Japan.
And you're not the I got that in my notes here. Somebody brought that up a few days ago that, and you and I've talked about this before. We dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. That
was the only thing that shocked the Japanese into realizing that we surrender.
They still didn't.
We surrender.
They still didn't surrender.
It took two bombs.
Yeah,
and we were threatening. We sort of head faked them a little bit by threatening to drop another one, and we didn't have any more ready at that point.
Right, we only had two.
We had two. We used them both and thank God that they came to their senses and said, "Okay, we surrender."
Yeah. And
for several years afterwards, we were shadowboxing with the rest of the world, pretending that we had all of these nuclear weapons available, and we didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the Korean War that we began producing them in quantity.
Yeah.
So, so right now, President Trump.
But the point you're trying to make, I think, I'm putting words in your mouth.
Sure.
Is that other people said this week, is that the Japanese were just as irrational about their ideas of world dominance as Iran is.
Yes, they were in fact irrational about that. The Yamamoto, the architect of the attack on Pearl Harbor, people were talking to him after Pearl Harbor. They were talking about invading the United States, and Yamamoto replied, "I would never invade the United States. There would be a rifle beneath every blade of grass."
Yeah.
And he was right.